Sir,
That's exactly the way it's been around here lately. It's not just me who's getting tired of this either. We're all going a little nuts. And if things don't change soon, I think we're gonna go off the deep end. Mom says we've been cooped up for too long and we just need a vacation. But what we really need is a vacation from each other. That's not gonna happen anytime soon, though, because we don't have any money. And the reason we don't is kind of a long story, but it basically has to do with a hot tub falling through our roof. Crunch. We've been living in Grandma's basement for 2 months, and I don't know how much longer we can keep going like this. Mom says that one day we'll look back on this time and smile. But she's not the one who has to share a futon with Roderick every night, who snores super loud and kicks me in the face. The crazy thing is, Grandma's got plenty of room in her house, so I don't understand why our whole family has to stay in her basement. When we first got here, I called dibs on the guest room, but Grandma said it was already taken by her dog, Sweetie. I don't think Grandma's too thrilled we're living with her, because whenever her friends come over, she asks us to stay out of sight. And that's kind of inconvenient, since there isn't a bathroom in the basement, and her friends always stay forever, playing cards at the kitchen table right outside the basement door. We can't use the kitchen when Grandma's got guests, which means we can't eat dinner until after they're gone. But last night, I guess Roderick got sick of waiting, so he heated up some leftover pizza in Grandma's dryer. Vroom. There's no TV in Grandma's basement, so the only thing we've got to entertain ourselves with is each other. And believe me, watching Mom and Manny perform the evening news as a puppet show is not enough. Mom says being bored is good because it makes you use your imagination. But whenever I try it, I always end up imagining the exact same thing. Roderick blasting off from our futon on a rocket ship to outer space. Something that's making the situation a lot harder is that Dad is working from home this summer, which means he's always around. And whenever Dad has a meeting, the rest of us have to pretend we're not there. But that's not always easy to do, especially when you've got a naked 3-year-old running in front of the computer monitor. Most of the time, I just try to keep myself busy. Grandma's got stacks of puzzles down in the basement, and I've done a few of them by myself. But Mom always lets Manny put in the last piece to make him feel important. If you ask me, I don't think Mom's doing Manny any favors by babying him. And it's gotten a lot worse since we started living at Grandma's. Sometimes, after dinner, we'll play a board game as a family, but Manny can't handle complicated rules, so we always end up playing a game that doesn't require any skill, like slides and rainbows. We have to go to bed before it's even dark outside because we're all on Manny's schedule. These days, Manny's favorite bedtime story is a Noah's Ark picture book. It's about this guy who hears it's going to rain for a really long time, so he builds a giant boat to ride out the storm with a bunch of animals. The illustrations in Manny's book are all cartoons, and they make it look like a flood that wiped out half the earth was kind of fun. But I guess if the drawings were more realistic and showed all the other animals and people drowning, parents wouldn't buy it for their preschoolers. I've got some questions about the Noah's Ark story, though. For starters, I want to know why Noah let venomous creatures like snakes and scorpions on board, because if it was me, I would have used the opportunity to leave a few of those guys behind. And then I would have used the extra space for more of the good animals, like puppies and hedgehogs and those pygmy hippopotamuses. Luckily, Noah didn't have to make room on board for whales and fish because they would have taken up a ton of space, and they probably didn't even know the flood was happening to begin with. But it doesn't make a lot of sense that Noah let birds on the ark, since they could have just flown, and I bet he regretted that decision as soon as they started going number 2 everywhere. You only hear about the animals that survived the flood, but sometimes I wonder if there were some cool animals that didn't make it into the boat, like the 2-headed rhinoceros, the alligator duck, and the platypus horse beaver. The way the story goes, after it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, it took 150 days for the floodwater to go back down. That means Noah was stuck on the boat with a bunch of animals, plus his wife and 3 sons. And whenever I feel sorry for myself living in Grandma's basement with my family, I think about Noah, and it makes me feel a little better. Mom keeps saying she's glad we're all together right now, because she feels like time has slowed down. I've noticed that too, but for me, it's not a good thing. Nothing slows down time like Mom teaching Manny the alphabet. Walrus. Something that's making this summer feel really long is that I can't go to my friend Rowley's house. And that's because he's off on some big European vacation with his family. When Rowley first told me about his family's plans, I tried to see if his parents might let me tag along. But I guess Mr. and Mrs. Jefferson aren't as sharp as I thought they were, because they never picked up on any of my hints. I'll bet your trip would be more fun if you had a friend along. Yep. Wonder who might like to come. So now Rowley's probably off having the time of his life while I'm doing 500-piece puzzles in my grandmother's basement. I think Mom feels bad we can't afford to do something special this summer, so she's been trying to make up for it. She says we can go anywhere we want if we just use our imaginations. But to be honest, cardboard cutouts of boats and tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower aren't really doing it for me anymore. I think Mom's finally had enough too, because last night she called a family meeting after dinner to brainstorm ideas for vacations that we can afford. But the problem is, everyone's got their own idea of a good time. Dad wants to drive around and visit a bunch of Civil War battlefields and take part in a reenactment. But nobody else was crazy about putting on wool underwear in the middle of August. Manny wants to go to the animal safari, which we used to visit a lot when I was little. But the animals in that place always seem so sad. Especially the donkey they painted to look like a zebra. Mom said we could save money by staying close to home and visiting places in our own community. But I've gone on enough school field trips to feel like I know this town inside and out. And trust me, visiting the water treatment facility once was more than I needed. The only ones who could agree on what we should do were me and Roderick. We both voted to go to the Thrills and Spills amusement park, which would be cheap, since Grandma got half-price coupons in the mail. Plus, they just opened a new roller coaster called Track Jumper that's supposed to be totally insane. Mom said the rides at Thrills and Spills are too scary for Manny, so she suggested we go to Storybook Village, which has rides for all ages. But me and Roderick have had enough of Little Miss Muffet's mild ride for one lifetime. Since my family couldn't settle on anything, I suggested we all go on our own vacations and do a slideshow of everyone's trips when we get back. Mom said the whole point of being on a family vacation is to do things together. She says that one day us kids are going to go our separate ways and time's running out to make happy memories as a family. But believe me, for this family to make happy memories together, It's gonna take a miracle. Monday. We finally figured out a way we could afford to go on a family vacation this summer. On Saturday night, my great-grandmother Gammy called Dad and asked if he could get rid of Uncle Gary's camper, which has been parked in her driveway for the past 2 years. Apparently, Uncle Gary ran off to work as a rodeo clown, and she doesn't think he's coming back anytime soon. At first, Dad was mad, because he's always cleaning up Uncle Gary's messes. But Mom said the camper was the solution to our vacation problems. Mom said the reason vacations are so expensive is because staying in hotels and eating at restaurants cost a lot of money. She said the camper would take care of both of those things. Then, Dad started getting excited. He said we could hit the open road and stop for the night whenever we felt like it. And we could cook for ourselves, too. All I know is me and my brothers were so happy for the chance to get out of Grandma's basement that we probably would have agreed to anything. Mom says we'll have a lot of adventures along the way, and now I'm getting kind of excited about this trip, too. In fact, I'm actually starting to feel a little bad for Rowley, because while he's stuck in a boring museum on the other side of the world, I'm going to be off doing something really wild, like whitewater rafting or hang gliding. For the past 2 days, we've been getting ready for our vacation, and I'm a little worried that Mom's hoping to turn this into an educational trip, because she's already made a wildlife bingo game. But believe me, the last thing I'm planning on doing is any learning while I'm bungee jumping. Yahoo! Wednesday. This morning, we went to the grocery store and stocked up on food for the trip. Then, we went to the camping superstore to get everything else we're gonna need. I was pretty excited, because we've never actually bought anything at the camping store before. Dad used to take me and Roderick there when we were little, but that was just so we could use their rock-climbing wall, battle with their oars, and play on their boats to kill time on a Saturday morning. When we got to the store today, Dad went around and picked up some basic supplies, like lanterns and canteens and camping chairs. But I went straight to the section of the store with the high-end gear for glamping. Because I figure if we're really doing this thing, I'm gonna want to be comfortable. I picked out an inflatable pull-out sofa and hiking boots with little fans built into the heels, plus a solar-powered blender that can make a cherry slushie in 30 seconds. Dad said those things weren't for serious campers, though, and made me put them back. Dad said we're gonna live off the land as much as possible on this trip, and he picked out a few fishing poles. Well, I don't know about anyone else, but the only fish I'll eat comes in the shape of a stick. Manny and Roderick got really excited about the idea of catching our own food, so they went off to find their own gear. But Mom made Roderick put down the crossbow, and Manny put away the Bowie knife before they could get too carried away. Roderick was pretty disappointed. I guess he was planning on doing some trophy hunting while we were on our trip, and was hoping to decorate the kitchen with a giant moose head when our house is finished. After Dad was done shopping, he was ready to check out. But I think Mom was nervous that we weren't getting the right kind of equipment, so she asked a sales clerk to look over our stuff and see if we had everything we needed. Well, this guy must have been a wilderness survival expert or something, because he had a lot to say, and none of it made me feel confident about going on a camping trip. The clerk said the number one thing we needed to worry about was bears, because there are a ton of them in the places we were going. But he said there were a few things we could do to protect ourselves, just in case. The clerk said The first thing we needed to remember was to always tie up our trash and hang it in a tree so it would be out of reach for bears. Then he said if we really wanted to be safe, we should buy a jug of wolf urine and spray it around our camp every night because it scares bears off. I tried to imagine whose job it is to collect wolf urine, and I promised myself I'd start getting better grades in school so it doesn't end up being me. I don't want to spend my time serving drinks to wolves trying to get them to fill up pee jugs. The clerk said the other thing we had to worry about was bugs like mosquitoes and ticks, so we should always put on plenty of bug spray. I was totally on board with that idea, because one time Albert Sandy told everyone at our lunch table about this kid who fell asleep outside and got sucked dry by a giant mosquito. And that sounds like a pretty bad way to go to me. I was starting to get a little nervous when the clerk told us everything else we needed. He said we had to have a first aid kit in case someone got injured, and waterproof matches in case our gear got wet. Plus, we needed a compass if we got lost, a snakebite kit if someone got bit, and a flare gun if things really got bad. Like if our camper fell into a ditch and Dad was about to get bitten by a rattlesnake. That would be the perfect time for Mom to use the flare gun. Whoosh! By the time we checked out, I was a little shook up. And I have to admit, Grandma's basement didn't seem so terrible anymore. I think the guy at the camping store stressed Dad out, because after we paid for all the stuff, we kind of rushed out of there. And we were halfway home before realizing